The Monday, March 27th, 2023, regular meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 5:30 p.m. For this meeting, there's a quorum of the council present. Item number 2, Mr. Gene Anderson will deliver the invocation, and number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mr. Savage, please.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, as always, we thank you for every blessing, for we know that every good and perfect gift comes from you. Father, we pray for our country, our state, our city, that you would bless us and guide us and direct us. Father, we pray for peace in the world, Father, where so many are without it. We want to make special mention for those, Father, who are victims of the tornadoes that have come through in the last few days, that you would help them, Father, and supply their need and comfort those, Father, who lost loved ones. We just ask you to guide and direct our council tonight, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Item number 4, the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city council members, or city employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. If necessary, the City Council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on this agenda. The public forum is now open. If there's anyone who wishes to address the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing no one, the Citizens Forum is now closed. Next item is the consent agenda. I don't want to pull anything, but I do want to point out that Mr. Anderson, our finance director, faithfully delivers a financial report every month, and it's very appreciated, and it looks very strong this month in particular. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Does any member wish to remove an item from the agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I will hear a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-1.
6-0. 6-0.
6-0, sorry. Well, I was counting, Reginald. Item number 18 on the regular agenda, receive notification of removal of Dwayne Dangerfield from the Housing Authority Board and appointment of Derek Hill to fill the unexpired term. I want to let everyone know that the Housing Authority Director, Sally Ruthart, reported to us that Dwayne Dangerfield had consecutively missed 6 out of 6 meetings, and that at the board's last meeting, the board voted that Mr. Dangerfield be removed from the board. In addition, our city council policies require attendance at 75% of the meetings. I've removed Dwayne Dangerfield from the board, and I am appointing Derek Hill to fill the vacant position of the resident member. Item number 19, receive presentation regarding a priority policy regarding Building and Standards Commission citywide demolition orders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We have before you a follow-up presentation made to the Building Standards Commission at their last regular meeting.
We have before you, we've conducted a couple of things here. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to appreciate Councilmember Moore and Mayor Pro Tem Hughes that attended site driving tours throughout our community, helping us to work on developing a rank prioritizing of the structures based on a number of criteria. We've developed a high priority, medium priority, low priority. Within the high priority categories, we've established a number of criteria for subcategories that prioritize those as the first and the worst among the list, most important for us to address. All of the demolitions, orders from our Building Standards Commission are important to us in the community. It's some that take a higher priority, and I think we've come up with a good, consistent and fair ranking criteria within that assessment, if you will. The total list is fairly large, as you know. The items are in your packet. There's still approaching upwards of 100. The good news is we've approached, of that list, about 10% have been demolished over the last 6 months. This has been the tougher time of the year and the season with the weather to be able to get in and do this type of work, especially as the sites get muddy, the landfills muddy and difficult. Even some of our contract demolition crews have got their trucks stuck out there, and they're the owners of the landfill, so that's a pretty tough situation. So we've done that. We've established the rank prioritizing. We've also worked with our GIS department. If I can direct your attention, I think it's in your packet, but we have developed a map showing where all of these structures are throughout the community. What's interesting, as you look at the map, you'll see they're not all concentrated in one place. They're spread out throughout, essentially the core area of the city. The majority, this is all inside the loop. A lot of this is in proximity to still where our 5 and 5 area is within the community. And so we now have the map to go along with the list, helping to just better organize the whole system and keep things moving in a positive direction toward in maintaining and improving the looks and appearance of our community. So at this point, what we are attempting to do at this budget cycle, we are at just about double digits right now. Our goal this year, by taking on some of the in-house equipment, is to reach, if it's optimistic, but we'd like to, our goal is 50 houses this year to be demolished, both in combination with the contract demolition crews as well as our in-house code abatement crew. And they've been honing their skills. We've got the equipment now to help as a dual effort here to hopefully reach those numbers the best that we can. So we're well on our way, and I think we're definitely going to be outpacing what we've done in the last several years. The rest of my team here tonight, I've got Robert Talley to answer any questions about the demolition, but at this point I would like to hand it off to Rob Viner, Assistant City Manager. Part of this program involves decommissioning of some of these structures, and I'd like him to talk just a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Mr. Vine?
Thank you, Andrew. Mayor, members of council, if you recall, several months ago, council gave us approval and passed an ordinance creating a deconstruction program to enhance the demolition process and to speed it up and also spread our money a little bit further as far as we can. We've come up with a deconstruction program. We just about have this ready to go. We have it fleshed out, the summary and guidelines I have in front of me, and I'll be happy to share those with you. And we are, I believe, Robert's here, I believe we have a few houses that we're advertising for this program. What that will do is we'll allow contractors to come in and deconstruct the house, stick by stick, brick by brick, whatever they're willing to take. That's less money that we have to spend on tipping fees to put the materials in the landfill, less time, and more money. We're able to hopefully demolish more houses. So be happy to answer any questions, but I can definitely get this information out to you electronically.
I think it's a great idea to reuse materials,
Yes.
some finer than you can probably get today.
Right.
So thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, a question?
Just had one quick question. Mr. Mack, I know you said the goal is about 50 houses. Does that include the 10 year-to-date? Or is that 50 additional to that?
No, it would include the near 10
Gotcha.
to date.
And then the other question that I have, I commend you for this, great job. The only question that I have, or the one thing that I would like to see if possible, is could we categorize this based off of district? Like, the list is great, but could we also find a way to categorize it? I mean, the map helps, but it would be nice to be able to see that just off of district guidelines.
Certainly. The way that this map is organized and the tours, it was done by quadrants, which is how our code enforcement division is broke up. There's one officer for each 4 quadrants. But we can certainly add an overlay to that map showing the council districts. That would be, it's a layer that's already built in our GIS, so it would be quite easy to do.
Yeah, the only reason why I asked that is because it would be easier for us to be able to look at and kind of quantify exactly what's going on. I had a constituent the other day that asked about, I think it was like 2760 West Campbell Street. Drove by earlier and I said, okay, well, yeah, that's perfect. It's on the list. It's right there by the church that they were talking about. So I wanted to just make sure and it would be easier to be able to look at. So I appreciate it.
Certainly.
So, of the 10 houses, are we saying we've torn down 10 in the calendar year of 2023?
No, in the budget cycle since October
Okay.
1st.
Okay.
Right, so
We'll
we're halfway
clarify
through
that.
roughly the budget cycle at this point. So I'm looking based on budget capacity with that assessment.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Because are we 6 months through the budget year?
5.
5 months? Okay,
Well,
No, it's right at almost 6.
Almost 6, yeah.
Yeah.
almost.
So we're saying because of the weather, we will be able to get 40 more.
I would also like to add to your question, even since this report, we've got 2 more demolished.
Oh.
So we're actually up to 11. And as he stated, once it gets dry to where, see, our crew, they just can't dump out there at all. We're pulling a dump trailer with a pickup truck, and it's great. It's just in those muddy conditions, they just keep getting stuck. They have to get the landfill's bulldozer and like push our whole, equipment out. Once that dries out, we had proven last year that we can get 4 to 5, my work crew can get 4 to 5 a month. So basically whatever our demolition contractor does plus hours, we're looking at probably 8 to 10 per month. And again, as soon as it dries out, our guys are sitting on go. I mean, they're ready to start tearing down houses again. We just can't get it out of the landfill right
I
now.
will add to this too. I mean, these same individuals are the same guys who are doing our junk and rubbish and mowing. So a give here is a take from somewhere else. So we are going to try to prioritize. I mean, I commend my staff's optimism, and so we will aim for 50. I ask no one hold us to that. We'll do our best. I hope we get more than that. But again, houses torn down are other duties we're not getting done. So we are going to try to prioritize houses coming down.
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Talley. Mr. Pat? Item number 20, discuss a residential landscape ordinance and provide direction to staff. I requested this item to be on the agenda because I've noticed a lot of erosion and unsightliness where no grass or any other landscaping is done. Ms. Ellis, could you bring up those photos, please? This is a quadruplex, and you can see up near the sidewalk that goes in front of it, there's an awful lot of erosion that then somewhere, this must have been a driveway when the previous building was there, and so it's gone into the street. I'm estimating that that's 4 to 5 inches deep in the street, and you can see how far out, it goes out into the middle of the street. Next picture, please. That's just a little bit better photograph, and it goes all the way around both sides of the building. So erosion is going to be happening. I don't know anything about construction. Some of you all do. But if that were happening around my home, I'd be very concerned about the foundation. All right, next picture, please. This is just further down. You can see, because there's a little bit of an incline there, and that dirt's just washing all down. It's going to go into a gutter or a drain at some point, I suppose. Next picture.
I think that's all we have here, I think.
I've got another duplex, a duplex that was,
We just have 3 pictures on this slide. Was there another?
well, I sent him another one. Maybe it's in that. It's a duplex that has had landscaping done up against the foundation of the house and then out between the parking lot, which in this case would be not much use.
Just those 3. I'm sorry, man, I'm not seeing the other pictures right now. I apologize.
Okay, I'll get it, and if I can pass it to the council, and I apologize to the rest of the audience that you won't be able to see it. Any questions or discussion? Oh.
So these are newly built duplexes?
Yes. They've all been lived in several months or several weeks at least.
It's got grass, that looks really good. Was there an issue with this one, or is that
I
just?
can't hear you.
Was there an issue with this one, or was that
No, I'm
just
saying that has put
looks
in,
nice,
of
yeah.
course, the landscaping has not fully
eroded
leafed out and
yeah.
so forth, but you don't see erosion, and
I see.
the street's not full of dirt that's run off from it. So, any thoughts or discussion?
I know you and I, Mayor, we've had a good discussion on this off the commercial end of it too. And I just want to make sure that from the commercial standpoint, I mean, we are requiring landscaping being done. Is that correct? Because, I mean, there have been fine businesses, I'm not going to name them, but there have been a couple within the last couple of years that I've been a little bit concerned because there's no landscaping there.
There's one just this fiscal year.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, we do require landscaping. It is a code requirement. Stabilization, planting of the green space, planting of the required trees. For some reason, oddly enough, I just left the particular builder of the first pictures voicemail at the beginning of this week, actually just yesterday. I happened to be driving by and had the same concern, so the call's already been put in to that particular builder. But as we are developing the Paris Development Code, the processes that are already in place, somehow this just didn't seem to get taken care of. Those processes are already in place. They should not have moved in. Some of the proposed changes that our subcommittee is discussing is talking about the requirements for the final CO and the rights to be able to move into the property. May be including some proposed changes, like if the landscaping, the green space is not in, they may have to post escrow in order to get their conditional CO. So then they actually got some money on the line, you know, to complete the work. If they're somehow, they couldn't get the sod delivered in time, the seed's not taken, you know, form yet. There's cleanup to be done, like this includes in our street. I know that our new city engineer, he's taken erosion control very seriously. In about the past 2 years since I've been here, we have really stepped up enforcement on erosion control. on all active development projects. We go over these things in pre-construction meetings now to make sure that these are being addressed. This one, quite frankly, it was a project that I think started as much as almost 2 years ago, so this sort of is under the old process, not under the new process. But we're looking to get this rectified right away, at least on this one particular site.
Any suggestions how we get people to do the right thing, even,
We have to stay on them. It seems like that's.
I'm sorry,
we need
I'm
to-
having
we
a
need
hard
to-
time hearing
We
you.
need to stay on the builders and contractors to make sure that they're adhering to our requirements.
Andrew, would I be able to, would I be able to discuss some of the stuff that I've seen just privately with you, just so that way it's not out in the public? But I mean, I would like to go back and review and see if this landscaping, I don't mean to make a big fuss on the landscaping, but I think at the end of the day, I just want to see that, hey, if it hasn't been enforced, then maybe we can just look into it, or if there is something, a ruling there that they have to have landscaping being done at some point. I understand that there's been some leeway, but we'd love to see that. I mean,
Right. Yeah, it's a combined effort between our engineering and building departments. So I'm seeing that partnership blossoming better and better, especially since our new city engineers arrived. Our previous interim city engineer was doing a great job with our engineering department supporting this. But I'm certainly concerned. When I saw this right away, I was aghast. And it's far more than we would ever tolerate.
But yeah, some of these projects obviously go back some time, and and it's an ordinance we've not been enforcing in years past. It's one, even since I've been here, it wasn't taken as serious as I should have made it in my first year and a half being here. So it was brought to our attention, Mayor Porcher brought it to our attention probably about 6 months ago, pretty heavily. And so I know we've added it to our pre-con meetings, our pre-development meetings about the requirements of our landscaping. So again, some of these projects predate all that, but not to excuse the way they look now, but we are trying to catch the new ones coming in up front going forward.
makes sense.
So how do we make sure that that's enforced? Because I don't see that it is.
Maybe we should not issue a certificate of occupancy until everything is, all the boxes are checked.
Well, that seems reasonable to me.
I mean, you want to start leasing it, then get some sod put down so that, it won't, the fill dirt won't leach into our streets and our sewer. We already have an overtaxed water treatment plant as it is.
We can definitely look at making it part of our CO. I mean, if that's the wish of the council, we can make it a requirement of the CO for commercial and residential. No moving in until landscaping is addressed.
And a way to keep that landscaping alive once it's there. I would be very interested in doing that. I don't know if that's a policy or an ordinance or what
I would prefer,
method.
is it in ordinance right now?
That would be an ordinance.
Is it in
Right now,
ordinance?
we don't mandate irrigation with our landscaping requirements. That's oftentimes part of a commercial projects. We also don't currently require, trees to be planted for new 1- and 2-family dwellings. In this case, I think it's a quadruplex, so it would have been required, it is required to either have existing or plant new trees. Our minimum requirement is a 6-foot-high tree. It's a 15-gallon pot, has to be a canopy, overstory tree, and it needs to be planted within the areas facing the street frontages and along the side property lines.
What's the minimum requirement for irrigation?
There isn't one.
There isn't.
Yeah, so we'll be looking at that as a part of our Paris Development Code Steering Committee group.
Yeah, I think we need to note that because, I mean, I can understand maybe a duplex not needing irrigation, but I mean, at a certain point, we have to draw that line and say, hey, well, there's an apartment complex going up. Let's see that they have some irrigation, something.
Right now, Andrea, does our code currently call for CO being withheld for landscaping?
The
don't recall that.
process does. The process is in place with the checks and balances. Again, this was, a project that was listed as a permit. It was started, before we made these revisions in our procedures. And quite frankly, the ordinance hasn't changed yet, but it's the process that we're more focused on and have been ever since our new building official has come on board.
My question though is it already a requirement for the CO?
Well, we don't issue COs for 1 and 2 families, but it would be for 3 dwelling units or higher.
Yeah, but for those at least, does before you get the CO, do you have to have landscaping done? Is that something we need to add to the CO?
It is part of the CO review of the final inspection,
So we
yes.
just need to be enforcing that better
Yes.
then.
Did I understand you said this was started without a permit?
No, it was permitted.
Okay.
The permit was issued prior to the revisions of the process.
Okay. Well, I think it also affects property values. A home, probably 3 or 4 houses from this quadruplex was a mayor's yard of the month last year.
Mhm.
I'm sure they don't appreciate
No.
living 4 doors from that mess. Well, you said you spoke with the contractor. Does he plan to make any amendments?
It was a voicemail message that was left for him. I have not spoken with him yet. It's interesting, you had the pictures, and I just placed the call yesterday, not even knowing that you'd bring this up tonight. I don't know if you'd want to hear from our city engineer. We've got checks and balances in place on the erosion control, separate from the landscaping. I think Todd might want to comment. He's been working hard on that.
Thank you, yes.
Yes, one thing I've noticed in coming to the city is the erosion and sediment controls processes are getting there, but we have some work to do to enforce them and hold developers and property owners' feet to the fire on those. So that's been one of my goals, working closely with Andrew and the rest of the city staff. But I've not, in the last 2 months, not done the best job of enforcing. One of those including is a large commercial project near Home Depot that I need to write letters about, but haven't yet. So it's a large issue, especially when it comes to, as you say, sediment in the street, clogging of gutters and pipes, where it gets to streamlines. It's bad for wildlife, et cetera. But that's one of our main goals, is to follow the process that's there. But a lot of times the developers don't see the importance that it actually is. But I'd love to answer any questions that you have beyond what Andrew and I have said.
Well, there's a single-family home being built next door to my mother in my district, and so much soil had eroded into the alley. I turned it into code enforcement. They went out. They had them put up the black plastic. The black plastic is now all on the ground. So, I don't know what to do other than that. My 96-year-old mother was scrubbing out her garage because she has to get in her garage with all that sand or whatever kind of soil it is. It's just, there seems to be no checks and balances, is what I'm saying. And I would like to do that. Let me hear from the rest of the council, please, what your thoughts are. Staff wants some direction here. If I'm the only one, we can drop it.
No, you're not the only one. In fact, I had a conversation with the city manager during our regular monthly meetings, not this month, but last month. And it was basically the same thing, that it's not a building code issue, it's a code enforcement issue. So, we're kind of, I think you're wise to ask that it be part of the building code issue, because maybe then there'll be more staff and more eyes looking at it, and perhaps it might be taken care of then, instead of, making the little semantics so that it doesn't get done, or that it's easily forgotten or fallen through the cracks. Yeah, I think that would be good to make it part of the building permit process.
I know off of the, and I keep bringing up commercial, so I apologize. I agree on the residential aspect of it also. But I know we've had extensive, I think your first week on the job, we've had extensive discussions about erosion and waterways being clogged up with silt and whatnot. I do think, I do agree with you, Ms. Knox, on the CO being withheld on that. I really think that having that inspection is huge. Not to belabor the point, but I really think that that's pretty important, and that we should look into that and enforce that. I understand that might already be there, but I get that we're making adjustments with new staff and whatnot, but let's really drive that home and see that change through.
Well, we keep talking about projects. I think I'm hearing, different projects, duplexes and things like that. But if we required people that are starting projects to do that, wouldn't we also require individual residents who are building houses or something like that? Wouldn't that be required? Because it's the same issue. I mean, a lot is a lot.
I agree, Mr. Savage.
I'm pretty sure there's provisions within there. It sounds like maybe it's more of an enforcement thing, or maybe we missed a few. And I think we've got some growing pains, but I think, in my opinion, we can make an ordinance tonight if y'all want, but we're in the middle of a committee that's trying to revise a lot of the loopholes and a lot of the overlapping, I guess. Mr. Savage was there the other night, and Mayor Pro Tem Hughes was there as well. It seems like there's a lot of overlapping things, and it's causing a lot of extra work, especially on the code enforcement side. If we can put in one blanket set of rules or outlines or guidelines that we're trying to make for development, I think it'll clean a lot of that stuff up. There are a few cases you're going to always have the habitual violators. We have those everywhere, no matter what business we're in. But I think there's definitely some room for improvement, but I don't see a huge amount of I see some, isolated things, and that's in every town, but I don't see anything way over the top that's beating us down. Like I said, you're going to have your habitual violators, but I can tell you from experience, we're renovating a house right now. We're doing a lot of demo work, outside, inside, both. We were inspected 2 or 3 different times for drainage, and we weren't in violation at all, but we have a ditch behind the house. We had to put different drainage ditches and different things to catch sediment on the back, which we're doing. And we were looked at a couple different times. I didn't realize that we would be looked at for that, but that's good. Are we missing a few? Yeah, I'm sure we are. Like I said, I think it's an ever-improving thing. I think it'll improve a lot when this subcommittee gets done with. I think we're supposed to be done in July. Is that right, Mr. Mack?
August or September.
August or September, I'm sorry. But I wrote that in my notes. I'll add it to the committee and make sure that, I think that's, in my opinion, the avenue to go.
So, and I know you're on the Code Enforcement Commission, or the team that we have, the committee. And Todd and Andrew, y'all can answer this question as well, and just answer it honestly. Do you think this is a high priority thing, or as Clayton said, he spoke to it being isolated, and I kind of see it as isolated. I haven't went all over the city looking for something like this, but it seems to be a little isolated. But do y'all think it's a priority or elevated to the heights that we need to make a change, or do you think what's already there kind of covers it? As Clayton said, you're going to always have some that are, it doesn't matter what we change, you're going to have some that's going to go against the grain. So do you see it as a high priority or as a priority?
But if I'll jump in and answer that real quick, obviously, if the council makes that priority, it will be a priority. And so, and I'm hearing that today. And what I can say is, I obviously, I can speak on behalf of my staff. I mean, we don't purposely ignore any codes, and so there's too much to do, too little resources, and so I can assure the council that my staff are not purposely ignoring landscaping, and so if anything, it's just not being thought of. We're trying to be thought of it more about it. I know we have been getting more in pre-development meetings, but we'll make more a priority. I've not sat down with staff in preparation for this meeting tonight, so I need to get the staff to talk about what is in our codes, what's not in our codes, what COs are applied, because they're right, we don't have COs for single family, so we have to think of other options to try to enforce it there, because there's not a CO to withhold on a single family. And but are there other avenues we can do, and then maybe add it to the PDC process. And but I need to sit down with staff to vet this more thoroughly and understand what is on the books, what's not on the books, and what are our current teeth. Unfortunately, I'm not prepared tonight to answer further deep than that, because I've not sat down with staff to talk about that. But it is very clear from tonight, it definitely is a priority for the council, so we'll start diverting more of our resources toward that.
So for me, it's not clear if it's a priority. So my question to them is because they see it a lot more than us. I know if we make it a priority, it will be a priority. But my question was to them because they see the city, they see these projects a lot more than I do. So that's why I was asking them to try to educate me on it. What are they seeing? It wasn't for them to make it a priority, but what are they seeing to help me? Because we haven't sat down and been, this is the first I've seen it when it entered the packet. So I didn't have any information on it as well, so I was just asking them that question for information.
If I could answer, it's not an isolated incident. What Mayor Portugal showed is not atypical, is from the smallest construction projects to the largest, it's everywhere. So, and it hasn't been my highest priority, but it has been a priority, so I will endeavor to make it a higher priority.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank all the staff. I appreciate that we have a lot of new staff. And I was a new teacher in 4 or 5 different school districts. Each curriculum is different. You've got to learn it. Besides, you've got to learn the parents and the community. But we do want our city to look better. We want safe and well-constructed homes. And we appreciate what y'all do to help us get there. Is that, you've got the gist of what?
I think I have the gist.
Okay, thank you. Item number 21, discuss and act on an ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-045 to correct the property description of tax increment reinvestment zone number 1 designated therein, making certain findings and other matters related thereto. Staff, you have a presentation?
Yes, Mayor, members of City Council, I'm going to address 21, 22, and 23 at the same time. They're all connected, but we'll do each item individually for votes. Some of you may recall, this is before most of us were on the council or on the city. Back in 2019, early 2020, the City Council at the time passed ordinances and documents to create a new tax increment reinvestment zone, a TERS. This is under Texas Tax Code 311. Just in short, and I'll read this verbatim here, but just to help educate everyone here. But the purpose of a TERS is to promote development of the area if the governing body of the city determines that development would not occur solely through private investment in the reasonable foreseeable future, that the zone is feasible, and that creation of the zone is in the best interest of the city and the property in the zone. The purpose of the zone is to facilitate such development by financing the cost of public works, public improvements, programs, and other projects benefiting the zone, plus other costs incidental to those expenditures, all of which costs are authorized in the Act. So with it, the City Council approved an ordinance, is ordinance number 219-045, to create the zone, the boundaries, and you have the ordinance in your packets. Then in 2020, the council approved, the act also requires that we have a financial plan and a project plan in order to have a TERS. Council approved those. The council then reviewed bylaws for a new board, but then sent them back for revisions. Then at that time, we had all the turnover. I came on board, lots of staff came on board. There was miscommunication. I was in the impression that it had been accomplished and done. It had not been accomplished and done. And so the last few years, we've been going along thinking that everything was tied up, ready to go. It was just slowly accumulating money. Well, we come to find this last fall that it had not all been finished, and so we had some work to do. So this is strictly a cleanup item tonight. We're not looking to make any changes. We're not proposing any changes other than the bylaw amendments to be done. This is strictly cleanup here to get this done. So the items here under the status of issues section, just to kind of cover those in brief, the work that we've done since fall of 2022. The engineering department, we recognize that the ordinance itself with the TERS boundaries was not, you couldn't follow that very well. The boundaries were not, the legally description, they were not right. And so we had to go through and clean that up. Chris Donnan and the engineering department worked hard on that to give us correct boundary descriptions. That then allowed us to create correct maps. Our maps we had on the books were not matching the ordinance as it was. And so we now have cleaned up maps and tonight, one of the items you have tonight is to approve an ordinance amending the old zone in order to give more correct legal description for that zone. The city attorney, she's worked to revise those bylaws off of what the council at the time requested. That's tonight for you to review. The biggest piece of this, obviously, is the money. And the whole point of this is to have money for public improvements. And so once we learned that LCAT had not been contacted at that time when this thing was created to create a TERS identification. And so there's been no information coming to us about how much should be separated out to go to the TERS. We've raised the money. The money's been raised. The way the TERS works is you take what you raise and you give a part of that to the TERS. This is not an additional tax on top of the district. It's taking the existing tax and taking a portion of that out for the TERS. So the money was raised. And in fact, since we've done so well in our budgets the last few years, we've had surplus in revenue and under expense. But the money is conceivably there. So working with Mr. Anderson and LCAD, we were able to identify that there should be $97,000 in the fund today. That's what it would have accumulated to this point. So given, again, we've had such good budget years, I've already authorized the moving of that to create the new TERS account that should have been created 3 years ago, and the money moved over to that. Obviously, the council could always reverse that, of course. But we got the money, so we made that in the TERS account as was the intent 3 years ago. So the money is there. Next, the council had created a board at that time. Again, because of all the turnover and other priorities we've had, we can go through a whole litany of priorities that we've been taking the last 3 years. This kind of came an afterthought, as many things do, unfortunately. It's a lot to do. That board has since now is no longer in existence. The members have all termed out. And so with this, working with community development, we've identified, the bylaws call for 2 city employees to serve on the board plus 3 non-city employees to serve on the board. So with that, working with staff, we recommended tonight for your consideration, Rob Vine, Assistant City Manager, to be on the board, as well as Thomas McMonigal, Fire, to be on the board. I chose not to have community development employees in there because they're the ones most likely to petition the board, request of the board. They can't petition and be on the board. And so I've identified Andrew Mack and Sherry Bedford as my main liaisons to this board. It most lines up with their duties. So, but Mr. Vine and Mr. Mack and Chief McMonigal, I think, are very qualified to understand the policies and procedures and serve on the board. But with that, the council would then need to identify 3 other individuals. Our recommendation tonight is you add those 3 to your standard board appointments to come in a couple months. So we'd advertise for those, take applications, and you would pick 3 to complete this board. So there's that. Again, I've identified Andrew and Sherry as my liaisons to this board. And lastly, one of the requirements in the act is once this is all completed, we have to then notify the State Comptroller Department of the creation of the TERS. We went back and checked with our consultant 3 years ago, and he vetted this entire process. He approves. We're still good. We've not lost anything. The nice thing is this money's been accumulating. In fact, it's just now picked up. We've seen some major bursts coming this last year, particularly from the downtown. As you see in the map there, the map extends across a good chunk of town. The good chunk of this money came from the downtown. We've had so much development downtown that it's feeding the fund pretty heavily. So with that, the goals tonight are to review and consider approving of the ordinance, amendment to the ordinance in order to get the more correct TERS boundaries identified. Another item is to review and consider approval of the revised board bylaws. And lastly, if you for your consideration, Rob Vine and Thomas McMonigal to serve as the city staff appointments. And then, unless otherwise said otherwise, we will then advertised for the last 3 positions through our normal process for board appointments. So that's a lot there. I do wish this thing had not been dropped 3 years ago, but I mean, I could make a ton of excuses. We were busy at the time, but thankfully we've not lost anything. The money's still there, it's available, and we can get this thing going forward.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Path? Let's take one issue at a time. Item number 21 on amending the ordinance. I think there were 5 pages of the description of the location. No discussion. I'll hear a motion.
I move that we approve the amendment to ordinance 2019-045.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 22, discuss and act on 2023 revisions to the TERS Board of Directors bylaws. Ms. Harris, you have information?
I do. Of the changes that council was interested in making to those bylaws, I made most of them. There were 3 that I did not make because they had to do with the language of the statute. The first was council had indicated that it was not comfortable calling the board a board of directors. However, that's how it's referred to throughout the statute. And since this is a statutory creation that's strictly regulated under the tax code, we need to call it what the statute calls it. The second one is council was interested in lengthening the term of the chair to, I think, 2 years from 1 year, but the statute specifically says that the term of the chair is 1 year. So we need to do what the state law says there. And then the final thing was an interest in the council of appointing the officers as well as the directors of the TERS board. And the tax code provides that while the council will select the chair, the members of the board will select the officers. So that's, again, something that I did not change because that's statutory. But everything else that you asked for, I changed.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Harris or discussion? All right, I'll hear a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 23, consider approving the appointment of Rob Vine, Assistant City Manager, and Thomas McMonigal, Fire Chief, as city employee members to the TERS Board and to advertise for 3 non-employee board members. Staff?
Yes, as before, I recommend those 2 individuals as our city representatives for this board, and then we would then advertise for the 3 remaining non-city employee positions through our normal board appointment process.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll hear a motion, please,
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 24, discuss and act on an ordinance amending Chapter 26, Public Squares, establishing certain regulations relating to operation of a farmers and artisan market and/or a special event at the market square, providing for issuance of a farmers market and artisan vendor business license, providing for a business license fee, providing a severability clause, providing a penalty of fine of $500 per offense, and providing an effective date. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. First of all, I'm standing in tonight for Sherry Bedford. I want to acknowledge her hard work on this. We sort of sat down, set out as a committee of 3 between Rob, myself, and Sherry on this. And I'm going to try to do my best to summarize some of the main points of what has happened with our wonderful farmers and artisan market. First on the ordinance, I'll go quickly through the list here. We're doing some basic updating. We've got some outdated wording, things like wagons and rummage sales. So we're bringing it into the modern era. We've done quite a bit in terms of the ordinance with regard to, since the pavilion was built back in the 80s. So the old ordinance appears to have been written before that was built and put in, installed there. Secondly, the growth has validated changes to the ordinance and what's happened with the market. We also have new users that have not been identified in the old ordinance. Texas laws have also since that time changed regarding farmers markets and creating additional opportunities for the types of foods that are allowed within the market. Again, a lot of work in some new definitions. We've taken some of this out of the Department of Health, State and Health Services, which also regulates some of the things and what can be done as a farmer's market. Things like cottage foods, that's new evolving language with the state, and this ordinance also then reflects that. We've defined expectations for what an artisan vendor is a little bit better, and also quality art and what was the intent of the market, and helping to better define that. Also, what's gone on here in the last 2 years is we've added some performers down there. Traditionally, we've done the Hatch Chili Fest, and we've had the Mariachi Singers, wonderful group that's down there every year, Labor Day weekend, and so we've added some more information about that. We also have pickers for the last 2 years that have just a group of volunteers that show up and play for no charge, which has been wonderful, including me. I sat with them a number of weekends and enjoyed their musician talents. Also, we've added verbiage about the designation, some business licensing language, and then we also have added some information which ties our market square for special events. In the event that we have folks that are looking to use this area for special event, working right now with an entity to promote new event activities at the market. As you know, you've approved a new restroom that has virtually literally just come out of the ground right now. The shell is in place. The exterior, we're working hard to finish the utility connections, and also enhancement with food truck opportunities down there for the future of the market, which will better support what we've currently been doing, but now we'll have water and electricity hookups for the food trucks with a total of 6 designated spots flanking either side of the restrooms. Another thing that we worked very hard referenced as a part of the whereases in the ordinance. And I intentionally printed this on large paper. We have 9 pages of guidelines that really are the nuts and bolts as far as how the artisan market and farmers market will operate and so forth. And so a lot of effort was put into that to make it very clear, understandable. I'll just touch quickly on some of those items. It's to better assist our citizens who wish to become a vendor. We've added some resources in the guidelines. We spelled out the process for the business licensing, which we are looking forward to integrate with our new MyGov 5 software that we are currently in the process of adding the new software and updating our old software at this time. Clarified some of the areas where we've encountered issues in the past with regard to parking and certificates, some disturbances that have gone on. Some of it's petty, some of it is important. Everything is important to the people that are concerned about it, so we gave that the due attention that it deserved. We've also worked to create a map. The map is a part of the guidelines. It's our last page. Shows the entire layout of the market square within the boundaries, defines what is the park and what is the farmer's market and the artisan area, and so forth. So that's been a very nice addition. And then we've also worked closely with the permit guidelines for the Paris-Lamar County Health District to make sure that we include their information as reference and as a requirement, either for under cottage foods or for food handling. and for certain, in terms of any prepared foods that are served there. And then we also created a new opportunity and spelled out guidelines for youth entrepreneurs and performers and for nonprofits. Finally, we have some new, like I said, user-friendly applications. This is all done online, and we think it's going to help with the legibility and streamline the sign-up process, which is full every year and virtually every weekend during the primary season. And so that is the summary. We have the ordinance before you, and staff is recommending that you approve that this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Ms. Bedford does a beautiful job of managing the farmers and artisan market, and Mr. Mack is often there working beside her, or if she gets a rare Saturday off from May to October, he's there. If you haven't been, it's a great way to spend a Saturday morning and see just about everybody you know, except Miss Knox likes to go in, buy her stuff, and go home and cook. Any questions? I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated ordinance as presented.
And a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion and a second. In favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 25, discuss and act on an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 7.02, Section 7.02.001 of the Code of Ordinances to designate the fire chief as head of the EMS department. Staff?
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, as you recall, in January 2023, 3 months ago, our EMS chief position became vacant. And so I then appointed Thomas Monagle, our fire chief, as the interim department head so that we can continue operations and continuity for that department. With that, to assist them out. So over the past 3 months, we've had an opportunity to examine what it's like to have both EMS and fire assigned to the same department head. My options in front of me were to either bring before you, we continue as is with two different department heads, two different departments parallel side by side, or we can continue as we are right now with both departments assigned to one department head. That's not new to us. Public Works is like that. Utilities are like that. Multiple departments assigned to one department head. We do feel, and we have found, there's been efficiency. There's been improved communication between the departments, having one department head to answer to. There's a lot of advantages to having that role shared by one position. With this, we would look at creating a new assistant EMS chief. We have an assistant fire chief. We would need an assistant EMS chief. There's a lot involved in EMS. It's a lot for one person to take on, and that's actually what the former EMS chief and I were discussing for some time about the potential of having an assistant at some point. But with this, the funding is obviously there. We've already got the chief, fire chief on board. We would just use the former EMS chief funding to help with that assistant role there. I had an opportunity the last 2 weeks, to meet with, of course, Chief Monagle, as well as our medical director, Dr. Sharon Malone. I also met with our 3 EMS deputy chiefs, our assistant fire chief, and our 4 deputy fire chiefs. Because, again, I see things from my level. I want to see things from their level, particularly as they're close to the front lines. And it was resounding, they think this is going to be successful. And obviously, there's some fear. It's something new. It's something that we haven't done in decades. But given Chief Monagle's character, his leadership style, his management style, and given what we've seen in the last 3 months, and given the direction we've been going the last couple of years, they see us as a positive step for our departments. They see it really bringing us even closer together. And so, with that, I would propose to you tonight that we amend our ordinance in order to, at this time, eliminate the EMS chief position and assign the EMS department to the fire chief going forward. I'll take any questions you have. And Chief Monagle is here tonight if you have any questions of him. So,
Council, any questions or discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
I do
Mayor.
too.
I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea as well. My only question, I guess, is to you, Mr. Paff. So with the possibility of creating a deputy EMS chief, how does that affect the budget? Are we gonna use that exact budget to, your chief would need a raise, and then we put a deputy chief in there? So is it gonna increase our budget any? I mean, I'm sure you've looked at the numbers.
Yeah, no, we would be looking at creating an assistant chief position, and again, with the former EMS chief's position now vacant, we have the budget there, and we would be lining up the EMS chief position, the assistant EMS chief position to line up with the assistant fire chief position, and the numbers work out in our budget. Again, having vacated one position, the money is now freed up for another position there, and since Chief Monaco is already on board, and we've already got him budgeted, there would be a slight adjustment for taking on some additional significant duties, but it's well within our ability to handle.
Yeah, but the assistant, if we had the assistant, he's not gonna take on the same salary as the chief.
No, I think it's a little lower than that. I don't have the exact ranges in my head right now. I apologize, but it would be slightly lower than what the EMS chief position was. It would line up with the assistant fire chief position, step 1 to step 8.
So there'll be a slight increase from the salary we were paying the deputy chief.
This change would indeed increase the total salary across both departments as a net increase, but to me, it's a insignificant amount versus the gain acquired through this change.
Yeah.
And
I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Chief McMullen I think he'd be a great head. I mean, if he doesn't mind handling both situations, I think it's a gain for us.
Yeah. Yeah, have some, Chief?
I just want to say I really appreciate Mr. Path's confidence in me. I think this will be a positive move for us going forward. We already have one of the best EMS systems in the country running here right now. And I believe that with their assistance and their drive to move forward, we can make this very successful.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. No further discussion. I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance to amend 7.02.001 to now assign the EMS department to the fire chief.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
A no? Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations, Chief.
You now have our confidence too, Chief.
Item number 26, consider and approve future events for city council and/or city staff pursuant to resolution number 2004-081. Does anyone have an item?
I have one thing. At a future meeting, whether it's next time or the time after, can we have a discussion about the housing study and get an update on that? I just wanted to kind of just understand a little bit more. I know a few of us had some questions on that.
Yep.
Love to see the process.
Actually, that will be on the next agenda.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we've got it, with the next step of the process will be on that agenda.
All right, great. I'll hear a motion for adjournment and a second.
Second.
Adjourned.